almost totally ruined my Tesla by making a couple of really big and very common mistakes. 3 years and 2 Teslas later, I like to think of myself as a pretty experienced Tesla owner who knows a lot about the car, the company, the tech inside the car, and who has really helped thousands of people learn more about the ins and outs of Teslas and even convert hundreds, if not thousands of people over to buying their very first Tesla. But I am not immune to making mistakes, and I have made plenty of them that I want to make sure that you guys avoid. So in this video, I'm breaking down 8 of my biggest Tesla regrets. Things I really wish I knew before I took delivery of the car, things that I even wish I knew before I bought the car, and also things as a Tesla owner now and as a driver for many years, just stuff I wish I sort of knew much sooner than what I'm sort of finding out about right now. If you're thinking about buying a Tesla or if you own a Tesla, you need to watch this video because you do not want to make the same mistakes that I did, because trust me, it hurt my car a lot more than I originally thought, so do not do what I unfortunately just did. Also, huge thanks to Optowatt for sponsoring this video. It is an incredibly awesome free service that saves you money by automatically charging your car when electricity rates are at their cheapest, plus so much more. More on Optowatt and all it can do in a bit. Before it comes time to take delivery of your Tesla, you need to make a few important decisions right off the bat. You're gonna have to go Model 3 or Model Y or Model S or Model X. What color and wheel options are you gonna go to? What trim are you going with? What battery size, probably most importantly? Are you going with standard range? Are you gonna jump to long range or performance? A lot of different things you gotta figure out before you press buy. And there has famously been a pretty big debate in the Tesla community on a Model 3 standard range versus Model 3 long range. And now with the Model Y coming in a standard range config, there's an even bigger question now, which is, what do you do? Do you need to go long range? Is that too much range? Is the standard range not enough range? And is it really worth the price discrepancy between sort of the lower cost model and the higher end model? Which one is really right for you? And from my personal experience, one of the biggest mistakes I think a lot of Tesla owners make right off the bat is buying too much range and some buying too little range. Now, I currently have a Model Y long range as sort of my daily driver, but before that, I was driving a 2019 Model 3 Standard Range Plus, which only had about 240 miles of EPA rated range when I took delivery of it about 3 or so years ago. And because I've gotten to live with and drive a long range and sort of lower end standard range model, I feel like I have some experience on sort of both ends of the spectrum and a couple of big takeaways that you guys need to know. First, on the standard range side, I think that this is actually more than enough range for most people, especially these days. The standard range cars are more than 240 miles, so you're going to be in a pretty good position. With 260-ish miles of range now on both the standard range Model 3 and standard range Model Y, you're going to have more than enough to go to work, go home, get around town, especially if you have home charging or a reliable way to charge your car. This is going to be plenty of range for most people. Obviously, less range is not ideal if you're going to do a lot of road trips. You're probably going to have to spend a little bit more time at a charging stop or maybe one extra stop in there just because you have a smaller battery. But if you're just sort of a casual driver and you're not doing a whole lot of road trips, it's really not that big of a deal. From personal experience as someone who did a couple of road trips in their car, I maybe spent a little bit more time with my Standard Range Plus than I would with a long range variant, and really wasn't that big of a deal. Where less range starts to become an issue, though, is when you don't have a reliable way or place to charge your car. And that's exactly what happened to me when I first got my car. And that's when it started to become more of a hassle to own a Tesla than a regular sort of ICE car. Was it so worth it to have the Tesla? I think so, but that's really where it started to get a little bit complicated. A few years ago, I lived in an apartment with no option of charging, and I was limited to just public chargers and superchargers, with the latter being one I often frequented, and quickly learned that this is not best for your battery. And I'll touch on this more in a bit, but for those who don't know, supercharging is not recommended as being your main or primary source of charging for a couple of reasons. One is that they're really made for road trips. They're supposed to be getting people in and out of there in a short amount of time. And also sort of that blast on the battery is not good for the health and the longevity of the battery, and oftentimes can sort of accelerate battery degradation. And I can say from personal experience, after going to supercharge once or twice a week and sort of using that as my main source of charging and charging to 85, 90-ish% And of course, that's going to have some variability on the degradation too. And after doing that for about 9 months, I lost a considerable amount of range. I think all in all, 2.5 years after I got the car, I think I lost 15% of the total range, which is much more than you should over a regular amount of time. If you're sort of keeping, healthy battery charging habits, you should not get that level of degradation. But that's what happened to me because I was supercharging multiple times a week, basically all the time for like 9 months, which was not good for the battery. And the other part of this equation, which I think we should discuss, is people buying too much range, more range than they need, which sounds a little crazy, but I really think is something that a lot of people do all the time just to be safe because of this horrible thing called range anxiety. And look, I get it. Range anxiety is a totally real thing, especially as a first-time EV buyer. And I know the rule of thumb is to buy as much range, as much battery as you can afford. But again, I think for most people, considering the price difference and other factors, it's probably not worth it, especially on the Model 3 side, because there is a considerable sort of jump in price going from rear-wheel drive standard range plus up to the long-range model. Not as big of a gap as it is on the Model Y, though of course there are different factors there, but just that to say, a lot of people don't need as much range as they may think. Again, as long as you've got a reliable way to charge and you're not driving crazy amounts of miles per week. And before we move on to my next regret, if you are a Tesla owner who is charging your car at home, whether you're trickle charging or doing a full high-speed NEMA 1450 charge, if you're looking for a way to save money on your charges, to charge smarter, and also just better help the planet while you charge, then you gotta be using the totally free service that is also this video's sponsor, and that is OptoWatt. Now, if you haven't heard of OptoWatt before, let me introduce you to a totally free service that is automatically going to schedule your EV to charge when electricity rates are at their cheapest, which means you are saving money to pay less to charge your EV, and your EV's charge has less of an impact on the planet, so it's sort of a win-win all around for everybody. And getting started with OptoWatt is incredibly simple and again, totally free. In a few simple clicks, you can create an account, you link up your Tesla account to your OptoWatt account, you enter in your electric company and your plan, and OptoWatt just automatically and sort of magically takes care of the rest. OptoWatt is also giving you more control than the regular stock Tesla app, which can sort of be a bit limiting at times. For example, you can change the scheduled departure time within the Tesla app, but if you're someone like me who sort of goes into work varying days and my schedule's always changing, the time I leave is not always the same every single day. With OptoWatt, I can change that and adjust sort of as my schedule changes to make sure my car is always charged when I gotta leave for work. And if you set your Tesla to charge at off-peak hours in the app, it's not gonna take into account those rate changes throughout the year. OptoWatt will do that automatically for you. It also gives you a really easy way to see exactly how much you're paying to charge and how long you've been charging and sort of what your battery has done throughout that charging time. So now is the time to charge smart with OptoWatt. Save money, save time, save hassle, and also save the planet by charging more responsibly at those off-peak hours. Again, charging shouldn't be this hard, so get OptoWatt and make your life much easier. So get started today by clicking that link down below. Again, it is a totally free service. It's going to be free forever, and it's going to make charging so simple, so easy. Get rid of the hassle in your life and just charge smarter with OptoWatt today. Again, get started for yourself today by clicking the link right down below. Next up, let's talk about another very common mistake that many Tesla owners make, and that is with FSD, Tesla's full self-driving system, which is pretty incredible to see in action, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely not for everyone. Priced at $12,000, it's a lot of money to spend, especially when you're sort of already paying a lot of money for the car and you're sort of paying for a lot of these future features that aren't out just right now. Maybe it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to spend that kind of money on quote-unquote beta features. Now, Auto Park, Smart Summon, Auto Steer, Auto Lane Change, Navigate on Autopilot, those are all fantastic features that are really useful and you can use right now, but the flashy part of FSD is, of course, that city street driving, which is right now FSD Beta, which is cool. It works really well from first-hand experience. I loved it a lot, but I don't think it's nearly worth the $12,000 price tag, at least as it exists right now. And while I don't think that FSD is a bad thing, I also don't think that many people need to spend the money on it because Tesla's actually already made a really good decision, and that is making FSD not a la carte by feature, which is what they should do, but they have made a subscription service. For $199 a month, you can subscribe to FSD and get all of the same features exactly as you would on your car, as if you paid the $12,000 to buy it all up front. And honestly, I think this is the best way for most people to sort of experience FSD and see if they really need it. And you can sort of run the numbers for yourself. But unless you're going to use all the full self-driving features every single day of the month for a number of years, the math might work out in favor of subscribing. And what I love about this is that you can sort of subscribe when you need those features, but you don't have to pay for them when you don't need them. For example, I love navigating on autopilot. I love auto lane change, especially when you're on a road trip. These things are wonderful to have, but I don't need them in my everyday commuting. But what's great is with the subscription, I could subscribe for the month I'm going to go on a road trip, and I can use these features and then unsubscribe when I get home, and no muss, no fuss, and I'm done with it. Now, this is also like, again, a free trial, or not a free trial, but a trial period. If you do want to test it, then buy it. You can go after the fact and buy full self-driving in its entirety. You can also, of course, do it at the time of purchase, though you do run the risk of the price going up between ordering and taking delivery if you don't buy it outright. And also there's some tax implications there. But all that to be said, try it out first, I think. And if you really are committed for it, you can either subscribe every month or you can pay the outright fee. But I do think that many people think they have to have full self-driving, or you have to have it in order to get autopilot. Autopilot is standard on all cars. You don't need to actually pay for that. And I think that most people don't need full self-driving. So don't get tricked into that. I don't think you need to spend that $12,000. I'd probably subscribe first and see if it's really worth it to you or not. Now, this next one is a quick little pro tip here, but one that I think is very important and one that is often overlooked, and that is Wi-Fi. Now, you might not think of Wi-Fi being essential for your electric car, but they are very important for Teslas, specifically because Teslas get a lot of feature-packed over-the-air software updates that require Wi-Fi to download these updates, at least most of the time. So you want to make sure you have good Wi-Fi wherever you park your car. Now, the Wi-Fi antenna in the Model 3 and Model Y specifically are very, very weak. So you want to make sure you have a good system. I'll leave linked a couple of mesh systems down below. I actually just moved and I bought a new mesh system specifically to get good Wi-Fi coverage in my garage for my Tesla, because Teslas are not only phoning home a lot and uploading and downloading data, but they do need Wi-Fi to do those downloads for software updates. And if you don't have Wi-Fi where your car is, there's just more hoops to sort of jump through. Yes, you can use your phone and like a hotspot feature to download those updates, but they download really slowly. So you're usually having to keep that phone on for quite a bit of time, usually a couple of drives in some cases, to get that download to actually finish, and then you can go and run the software update without Wi-Fi. But just keep in mind that if you do have your whole garage ready and your charger ready for your car, make sure you've got good Wi-Fi out there, exceptionally good Wi-Fi, because the car is going to need it for downloading those sweet feature-packed software updates. Now, this next one on this list is probably one of the biggest regrets I personally have on this list, and a mistake that so many Tesla owners have made, and that is charging your Tesla. Now, if we sort of had a scale of most convenient to least convenient, I think we can all agree that plugging in your car at home and getting a high rate of charge, a high speedy charge to your car is the most convenient way of charging your EV, while the least convenient way is trying to find something where there's no superchargers or no home charging options available for you. I think that we all agree that we want to have a solution that is the most convenient as possible for us. And the first thing, of course, you've got to consider if you're charging at home is how are you going to charge? Are you going to just plug into a regular 120 volt outlet, which we sort of see in most garages and sort of most places these days? You've got access to a regular old outlet, or do you have access, or are you going to install a higher end sort of 220 volt outlet, whether it's an NEMO 1450 or 1430? And this is definitely something you want to plan out in advance, because it is time consuming and it can sort of be expensive, especially if you have to get an electrician involved, and depending on what your panel is, it can be sort of a complicated thing that you've got to figure out before you take delivery. So definitely make sure you plan out in advance how you're going to charge your car at home. And a little more here on my personal experience and mistakes that I have made. I have had all three different charging scenarios. I had no home charging, I had access to trickle charging, and I even had the very coveted 220 volt outlet. And I got to experience the full sort of array of different charging solutions. And here are my biggest lessons from my personal experiences. One big mistake that I'm actually living with right now. Personally, not having a home charger doesn't sound like a big deal, and it isn't, as long as you've got somewhere else you can reliably charge your car, whether that's the gym, it's your office, somewhere you can park for a few hours regularly to get in that charge. If you can figure that out, that's like half of the equation. If it's like your office or somewhere you frequent, that's even better. If you can have a place to reliably charge your car, even if it's not at home, you're going to be better off than most people out there like me who didn't have that at all, which led to an even worse scenario. Now, at the last place I lived, I had a NEMO 1430 plug in the garage. I'm not sure exactly what specification it was, but it was great. It was really easy. That was like the best way to own an EV, because you just plug in, it'd get like 20 to 30-ish miles an hour of charge. I woke up every morning, the car was charged, and it was good to go. That was definitely the way to go, and it is definitely worth it. Which leads me to my new place, which is right in the middle now, which gives me a nice garage and a reliable place to charge my car, but there is no sort of NEMA plug and no dryer plug. I'm just using a regular 120 volt outlet, which means I am trickle charging, which let me tell you is painfully slow. Another big regret I see talked about all too often on different Tesla subreddits and forums is insurance, because with a car of this price in this caliber and Tesla having the reputation they do for their less than ideal parts supply, surplus, and repairs, Tesla insurance can either be good or bad depending on where you live, of course, your driving habit, all that stuff. Something else I sort of wish I knew before I joined the Tesla family is that the ordering, delivery, service experience is going to vary wildly. You're going to hear some stories from people who have had horrible experiences from ordering to delivery and there are issues with the car. But I will say the positive Tesla experiences happen all the time, every single day. And on my personal experience here, I've had a lot of good experience with every Tesla employee that I've talked to. My delivery experience has been pretty good. I'll leave a link to the latest saga down below if you want to check out my Model Y delivery saga. But Teslas have been great. My service center experience has been great with mobile tech service centers. I have had a great experience. Just don't get sucked into the vortex that is issues with Teslas. They're unreliable. They've got panel gaps. They've got issues. All cars are going to have issues. Teslas are not immune to issues. Tesla's chain of command with service centers and their communication between different departments can definitely be improved. But the horror stories will make it out to be a lot worse than it actually is. So just keep that in mind before you buy. And as you sort of own your Tesla, now it's not as bad as many people would lead you to believe it is. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts, guys? What are some regrets you have had as a Tesla owner? What are things that you wished you knew sooner? And what are some of the biggest mistakes you have made as a Tesla owner? I have made plenty of mistakes with my battery and my poor charging habits and just issues I've had. I have definitely learned from my mistakes, and hopefully you guys don't make the same ones. But I'm curious, for those of you who own Teslas, what advice would you give to a new owner or other existing owners on what you should do and what you shouldn't do? Let me know your thoughts down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching these videos. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm Robert Rosenfeld, and I'll see you all in the next one.